Okay, so Howie Roseman just continues to sign every cornerback possible, creating a really big, good problem. But which surprising Eagles are in danger of getting cut? Plus the reason Dallas's world just got even worse, and the bullet Philly dodged by not getting Justin Fields. So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Do me a favor and hit that like button because things just keep getting better in Philly while they keep getting worse in Dallas. After Detroit signed quarterback Jared Goff to a massive 4-year extension worth $212 million, including $170 million of that guaranteed, which for those counting makes Goff the second highest paid signal caller annually behind Joe Burrow. Like, if for some reason you weren't thinking Jalen Hurts' contract was a good thing, there's no question it is now. I mean, seriously, after just about a year since Hurts signed to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL for a couple days, he's now just the 5th highest paid based on a per-year basis, and that number's just going to continue to get better. Unlike the Cowboys, who continue to be all in on making things as difficult as possible, since the more QBs that sign ahead of Dak just continues to increase his asking price. Now sure, if I'm Dak, I'm in no hurry to get anything done because yeah, you know what's happening here, and plus the longer that it does go, the more leverage that he has anyway. But it's impossible not to at least crack a smile at Dallas's inability to get anything done. Meanwhile, Big Pimpin' Howie Roseman is signing every cornerback known to man, after the Birds added nickel Shon Stephens to the roster yesterday and will have him compete with the 15 others on the roster. Alright, it's not really that many, but it does feel like it at this point. Also, Pro Football Network's Anthony DeBona did confirm that he's getting number 41 to start off, so not the worst omen considering Britain Covey made the roster with that same number. However, despite Stephens' 4.3 40 time and ridiculous ability to create turnovers, by the way, he led the nation the past 2 seasons in Division II in takeaways, he's still going to have a difficult uphill battle to make the roster, which I'll get to more of that in a sec. Of course, initially I noted he was 6 feet tall, however, after going through various sites, I'm now completely unsure, with his height being anywhere from 6 feet all the way down to 5'8" on the Eagles bio page. I mean, I know everyone's height is usually inflated a little bit, but it's hard to imagine this dude being that far off. I don't know, either way, the most general consensus was 5'11", and Stephens definitely isn't lacking any confidence, given his response to PFF's post about the Eagles drafting Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper Dejean. Look, personally, I want that type of confidence for my players, especially at the cornerback position. Although the type of confidence I don't want is Justin Fields. After a Bears member leaked Fields being the cause for Chicago's QB room in 2021 being toxic as hell, sharing a specific instance when Nick Foles was trying to teach Fields something before Foles realized Fields wasn't paying attention, and Foles was done trying to play the mentor. And to that point, the two couldn't stand each other.
Ryan is being a little bitch again.
Come on, Michael.
What's up, my brother?
Alright, fine. Some situations don't work out. But I'm sorry, if you can't get along with Nick Foles or at least allow for some constructive criticism, or I mean at the very least show a little bit of attention, then maybe you're beyond saving. I'll just say thankfully the Eagles didn't get Fields. However, yeah, you're right on the fact that we did just get Kenny Pickett as QB2 instead, and he doesn't necessarily have the most unblemished record either, with reports of being disgruntled after being benched and refusing to suit up as the backup for that very reason. Yet for the record, Pickett did deny those claims, so take that how you will. Anyway, even without those claims against Fields, y'all know I was out on him for a long time. Heck, I even made a video urging the Birds to stay away from the former first-round pick. And who knows how that one turns out, but I'd much rather have our QB room than the combo of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But speaking of our QB room, let's get into some of those wild 53-man roster predictions, especially with some surprising players on the bubble. Anyway, let's start with the consensus of Jalen Hurts as the starter, followed by Kenny Pickett as QB2, and then Tanner McKee rounds out as QB3. I guess if you want to say there's going to be a little bit of competition at QB3, that's possible. I mean, however, I think that Will Grier was mainly brought in to help translate Kellen Moore's offense and his scheme and system to the rest of the quarterbacks. But next we'll go with running backs, taking 3 with Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell as the RB2 for now, and the third option of Will Shipley. I mean, I know we had 4 last year, but I highly doubt the Birds add a 4th to the roster this year, especially how Rashad Penny worked out or really didn't work out. Like worst case scenario, if you need someone, you could always elevate Ty Davis Price on the practice squad or a Kendall Milton, so you should be fine. But how are we doing so far? Any disagreements or arguments? Because I'm sure we will on this next one. As I'm going with 6 receivers, obviously Givens and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Ainias Smith. But then that's where things get interesting. And for the sake of this argument, I'll go with Britain Covey, Devontae Parker, and Paris Campbell. Yes, I realize that's leaving Johnny Wilson off the roster, but I doubt he plays special teams and really more of a long-term project at this point. Now, I get it that he can be a threat in the red zone, but just not sure it's enough to take away a spot from another guy who's experienced. However, I can't knock it if you go that route, which is what Brandon Lee Gowton did and swapped him out with Paris Campbell, citing the fact that if you have 2 slot guys in Ainias Smith and Britain Covey, then perhaps you don't need Campbell as much. Let me just go ahead and offer a disclaimer that even though Devontae Parker can't separate to save his life, I think the Eagles still keep him, despite me being interested to look elsewhere. Although PFN's Anthony DeBona has Britain Covey on the outside looking in, arguing that despite being one of the best punt returners last season, Covey didn't offer much as an actual receiver. Therefore, if Covey fails to show much as a receiver during camp and the preseason, he'll likely be let go due to the fact that Ainias Smith can also return and is 5 years younger. It makes a lot of of sense, but I might have to disagree on that one. Simply because I honestly can't see Philly parting ways with a guy that more than proved it in the return game last season. I know those spots are luxury, but it feels like this would be a if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation. I don't know, maybe that's not the most forward-thinking or winning mindset to have, but which wide receivers are you taking and which ones make the roster? Also, I can't forget about Austin Watkins coming over from Cleveland because he's shown the ability to make some plays, so maybe he's able to end up winning at one of those spots too. Or there's also Joseph Ngata as a UDFA from last year that the Birds like, so depending on where he's at in his development, an outside backup role isn't impossible. And then at tight end, I'll go with Dallas Goedert, CJ Uzomah, and Grant Calcaterra. Obviously, DG's a given, and so is Uzomah after making a signing like that to replace Jack Stoll. However, tight end 3 could get interesting, with Howie still seeing some potential in Albert O to re-sign him, and even bring in McAllen Castles as a UDFA from Tennessee. But even though this one is somewhat of a toss-up, I'm going to roll with the experience of Calcaterra and the fact that he actually plays special teams. Next is offensive line, and we can debate who's starting right guard all you want, but the 10 guys in that spot feel like a pretty strong lock at this point, so we'll go with Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson, Mekhi Becton, Matt Hennessy, Fred Johnson, Trevor Keegan, and Dylan McMahon. It's kind of nice to know that we can blindly trust Stout, but given the recent moves, my guess would be these 10 on the roster. Alright, so that's the offense with 25 spots taken out of the 53. Again, a very extreme early prediction, but I'm open to any criticism. Now, how about the defense? Where we'll start with defensive tackle, taking Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Moro Ajomo, and Gabe Hall. Alright, my bias may be getting in the way here with Gabe Hall. Like, he is really good. However, there's a reason Dave Zangaro has Marlon Tuipulotu making it over the Baylor defensive tackle, since Tui provides depth for JD and has played a decent amount in the past couple seasons. Honestly, whichever direction you go, it may come down to Milton Williams being the X factor, with PFF calling the former third-round pick the most underrated player on the Eagles. But he's obviously not the only guy with something to prove on the D-line. I mean, heck, take a look at the edge group, with newcomer Bryce Huff hopefully being able to fill Hassan Reddick's shoes, and then the goal of Josh Sweat to return to 22 form. Plus, you got Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, and Jalix Hunt to round out 5 edge players to make the roster. I wrestled with 5 to 6 guys here, but decided to take 5 so that I could have 5 linebackers coming as well. Naturally, though, that leaves out Julian Okwara and Patrick Johnson, and who knows, they could certainly play themselves into the Birds deciding to keep a 6th spot. However, when looking at the linebackers, I had to stay at 5 because I kind of see Zack Baun as that hybrid who Vic Fangio suggested will play inside. Yet with his ability, if the Birds suffer some injuries on the edge, then I think you'll see Baun turn into more of an edge player like Andrew Van Ginkel. But for now, I'll go with keeping Devin White, Nakobe Dean, Zack Baun, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Ben Van Sumeren for my linebackers, with the noteworthy cut being Oren Burks. Of course, you may be wondering why so many linebackers, and that's a fair question, but I liked Anthony DeBona's argument for bringing an extra linebacker since the new NFL kickoff rules should favor more sure tacklers due to the closer confined space. It definitely makes a lot of sense, plus they all can't be cornerbacks. Despite my prediction having 7 on the roster, because I just can't see a world where Howie signs all these corners to only end up keeping 6. Which is why I have Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, Avonte Maddox, and Eli Ricks as the guys who make it. I'm sorry, but with all these signings and Quinyon Mitchell here, there's no way James Bradberry's on this roster. And then for the nickel, I had a really tough time deciding between Avonte Maddox or Tyler Hall, because even though Hall has a fairly small sample size, he's been really solid in production, while Maddox unfortunately just can't stay healthy. However, I just think the Eagles feel too strongly about Maddox and his potential to be a top 5 nickel when healthy, so they decide to go that route. Of course, yeah, that leaves out recent signing of Shon Stephens, but again, it's impossible to keep everyone, so obviously we're going to have some disagreements. Like Bleeding Green Nation, who actually has Eli Ricks getting cut. And Pro Football Network does too, saying guys like Ricks and Josh Jobe just haven't shown enough consistency to warrant a spot on the final roster. Although we'll have to agree to disagree on that one, because I think there's too much untapped potential and an edge that Ricks plays with to allow him to get cut. But who knows, it's just crazy to be at this point. Like, imagine saying we have too many corners. Obviously, that's why I suggested possibly trading 1 or 2 of them for something in return later in camp or in the preseason. But there you go, there's the corner prediction as well as some of the other guys on the bubble, so who do you agree with and disagree with? By the way, the last 2 position groups to round out the predictions are safety, keeping CJ Garner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, and Sidney Brown. Or at least the way things look right now, it feels that way, and then Mekhi Garner can remain on the practice squad and be elevated as needed. And then last, the specialists are a lock in Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, and long snapper Rick Lovato. I'm telling you, the more that I look at this roster and trying to get it down to 53, there's going to be some serious competition that takes place.
go, Grant. Come on, Grant.
I mean, come on, how can you not just love that? The competition, the personality, the passion, the fire, everything else. I know that we're so far from the season, so maybe that's the extra hype that I have. But seriously, this squad feels different. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments, as well as the 53-man roster predictions, all the other hype, expectations, and also a quick shout out to Troy in Oklahoma. Until next time, I'll see you guys. This has been the Philly Special.